talk to people about Jesus. And we do this so that we can go around and just tell people just a little bit about the person that, the God that we serve and the God that we love. It's Christmas. And you all know the Christmas story where the angel Gabriel comes to Mary, a young teenager, from an area of Galilee that later in the Bible somebody asked, is there anything good that can possibly come out of Galilee? So she was a young teenage girl from an area that nobody thought any good could come out of. And the angel of the Lord came to her and said, guess what? You are highly favored by God. You are going to have the Son of God. Now, this was quite amazing to her, and it happened just like that. But can you imagine that as her time to have that baby, the Roman leaders decide that they want to do a census and they want to gather up money. And so she and Joseph have to walk to Bethlehem. Now, can you imagine when you're about 9 months pregnant, having to walk all that way, that long, long journey of days and days? Can you imagine what Mary felt like? Can you imagine that once she got there, I get tired traveling by a car, do you? And I get tired traveling by a car. She's walking, she's 9 months pregnant, and she finally gets to Bethlehem, and the place is so full, there's nowhere to stay. And so she has to drag herself into the barn. And now labor pains are starting. And she's probably got some animals around and laying at the hay. And I'm sure I can just imagine this young girl looking up and thinking to God, I don't feel so highly favored. And then she has that glorious night where Jesus is born. And things go pretty good for a while, except when Jesus gets about 2, the leader, the Roman ruler of that area, hears that there's a king that's been born, and he decides that he's going to kill all of the Jewish boys in that area. And so she has to leave her home, she has to leave her family, they have to leave their livelihood, and they have to walk to Egypt to get away from the trouble. And I could just imagine on that journey, because she had this son, that I could just imagine her saying, God, right now, I don't feel so highly favored. And then, as her son gets older and he begins his ministry, the leaders of her church, many of the leaders of her communities begin to hate her son because he's going around and he's doing miracles. And he's telling people he's the Son of God. And they begin to hate, and not only they begin to hate him, they begin to plot to kill him. And I can just imagine what Mary was like as she's there when Jesus is arrested, her son is arrested. And I can just imagine that as he comes out for his public display with Pilate and seeing her son that's been beaten to where he's hardly alive, and having people that she knew, people that were of her country, of her religion, screaming, crucify him, crucify him. And I could just imagine Mary looking to God and saying, I don't feel very highly favored. And then as she stood at that cross and she watched them nail her boy's hands to that cross and his feet to that cross, and as she sat there and watched him slowly die on that cross, I can imagine that she's wondering, I don't feel very highly favored. And then as her son dies on that cross, and they bring the body down, and she's holding her son, her boy, in her arms, and he's bloody, and he's beaten, and he's dead. And I can imagine Mary looking up to God and saying, God, this is my boy. This is my boy. And I don't feel very highly favored. And I can imagine God looking down at Mary and saying, yeah, no, it's my boy too. But then 3 days later, they go to the tomb and it's empty. And Mary gets to see her son alive. Without a doubt, she knows this is the Son of God. He has overcome death. And right now, Revelation tells us that Mary and all who believe in her Son are sitting on his throne at the right hand of God. We're talking about Mary. We celebrate about Mary. She is now receiving and is with her Son at the right hand of God. And now she knows without a doubt she was highly favored. But you know what? There was another angel that came that Christmas night. And he came, and I think it's so much like God. That angel didn't go to the preachers. The angel didn't go to the rich people. The angel didn't go to the high politicians. The angel went out among the working people, the shepherds. And he went and he told the shepherds something. And he said, I bring you great news of great joy. Good news of great joy. A Savior has been born to you. And you know what he said? A Savior for the world and men upon whom his favor rests. You know what that angel told us? The angel told us that you're highly favored. The angel told us that all men are highly favored by God. And this Christmas, the good news of Christmas is that Jesus came to show us that we were all highly favored by God. But guess what? There's some tough times, isn't there? Ever have some tough times, Marvin? Marvin, ever have some tough times? Sometimes you wonder, man, God, I don't feel very highly favored. But guess what? When we walk with Jesus through our life, through the good times, through the bad times, he makes a promise that he's never going to leave us. And you know what? Even better than that, he said, when this life is over, I have prepared a place. You can use your wildest imagination, and you cannot imagine the place that I have prepared for you. And we are highly favored by God. That is the story of Christmas. And sometimes it may not seem like it. Sometimes there are hard things that we have to go through life. But the key to always remember is that God keeps his promises, just like he kept his promise with Mary. And thank God that our God sent us Jesus. That is the celebration of Christmas. You know, today was such a tragedy. Today was something that just shocked us all that happened in Connecticut at that school. I think it was at least 26 children were killed. And it reminded me of a time a couple of months ago, when I got a call in the middle of the night. And a lady that we had got to know at Red Carpet had two young twins that were born premature. And she woke up in the middle of the night to find that her little infant daughter had died. And they went to the emergency room and tried to save the little baby, but they couldn't. And in that time, when we look and thought, this is tragedy, this is horrible, this is awful, what good could God possibly do through this? We have to remember that when death that we brought into this world came to that little baby, Jesus was there to say, you're highly favored and you're with me forever. And even today in that tragedy, Jesus says that those that come to me as these little children will be with me forever. That tells me that the little children are with Jesus. And I believe these little children that died today are with Jesus, just as that little baby was that night. That is a Jesus that brings hope. That is a Jesus that we can rely on. That is a Jesus that we can live our life for. And that's the Jesus that we come to tell you about, to celebrate, to praise, and break our toes and our hands and everything, just to get a chance to get before people, to tell them about this Jesus. And tonight, and this Christmas, the one thing that we hope that you remember is that in the good times and the bad times of your life, you are highly favored by God.